Right now, delighted to welcome to the studio Sam Armstrong, who's a Conservative commentator and joins me, as always, on a Monday morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
No, normally you and I, right at this point, we're discussing the Monday morning announcement from the Labour government. We haven't got one today, but we have got a major internet outage affecting, I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens of websites that people would be using. Although, frankly, a lot of those are websites you shouldn't be using on Monday morning because you're supposed to be at work.
Well, I've got a little theory as to why there isn't our weekly press release from the Home Office pretending that they've solved it, and it's because we are today 82 short of beating the 2024 record for illegal migrants, and
it's only October.
The weather isn't great, but there's a chance that 100 people are going to come across either today or tomorrow, and we are going to hit record numbers once again under the Prime Minister that promised us no ifs, no buts, he would smash the games.
But hold on a minute, yesterday there was a press release by the Home Office that we put out, you know, on social media, and they were terribly excited about, you know, with another 16 people returned to France. Yeah, in return for 16 coming over plus their families, by the way.
Yeah.
But again, on the same day that I think 350 roughly had arrived, and they're literally putting out press releases going, "Oh, look at us, 16 people back in return for 16 coming in," and the 360 or whatever who arrived that day. I mean, do they hear themselves?
Well, it's a joke. It's insulting to the public. It's insulting, frankly, to the institutions that they occupy. And it's dangerous for the country. I mean, look, we are in a situation in which we've had, forget one in, one out, we've had 36,734 in and 42 out.
Yeah.
It is a joke. They are not even beginning to touch the sides of dealing with this issue. And they're going to continue to do so because, come what may, there is absolute total reticence to do the only thing that is necessary, which is to say to these people, no ifs, no buts. You come to this country illegally, you're going somewhere else. Nobody gets to stay.
And you're going to be...
You only need to do that once, and it's over.
And it's done. I know, again, Australia did it. Well, God, my God, we've talked about that a million times. And my God, we're going to talk a million more times about our next topic as well. Prince Andrew.
Yes.
Two big developments related to Prince Andrew over the weekend. One... is more revelations in Virginia Giuffre's book, and she, of course, committed suicide, having been a victim of abuse. And she's in her memoirs, which are published tomorrow, but early excerpts have revealed, you know, she talked about being sexually abused by her family, her father, and a family friend as a child, and then being targeted by Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. This is a very normal story, sadly, because they, you know, abusers know the girls and the boys to target. They know what they're doing, and then being abused, saying she feared that she was going to die as a sex slave, being, you know, subjected to horrific sadomasochistic abuse and choking, goodness knows what, by Jeffrey Epstein and the friends of his that she was handed around to. More details about her claim that she had sex 3 times with Prince Andrew. The third one in basically an orgy with a bunch of women who were under the age, well, girls under the age of 18. In her belief, she thinks she was around 18. Now, again, Prince Andrew has always denied ever having even met, let alone having sex, Virginia Giuffre, despite the photograph and all the allegations, and, of course, paying £12 million to her, the way you do. As I've always said, I mean, who of us has not paid £12 million to someone accusing us of a crime when we haven't even met them? But there we are. We've all made that mistake, have we not? There's no doubt at all that her publishing Beyond the Grave is more damaging because, look, you know, she committed suicide. She's obviously had a very troubled life. Yet, do you think if you've been the victim of abuse and you've been sex trafficked? Now, again and again, also, more lies have emerged about, I mean, crucially, just ahead of the weekend, about these latest email revelations that have come out of America, that, of course, once again, yet more proof that Prince Andrew lied during that interview for Newsnight and Emily Maitlis when he said, you know, he'd broke off contract with Jeffrey Epstein. Well, we know he hadn't. We knew, I mean, he basically in contact, and also that he basically wanted dirt on Virginia Giuffre. Crucially, he basically got hold of her social security number, her date of birth. He was convinced she had a criminal record and gave it to his close protection officer. And we know this because in his own words, in his email that he wrote himself to the Queen's Deputy Press Secretary, he said, I'm going to basically get some dirt on her, effectively. Now, illegal for a police officer, illegal to ask a police officer to commit a crime, because it would be illegal for a police officer to do that, likely to face police investigation. Unlikely anything would come of it, because that's what happens with the royal family. Remember those bags of cash that Prince Charles got given? That's all gone away, right? I'm sorry, that is what happens in this country.
Come on.
But no, that's literally what happens in this country. But we've had him stripped of what? He's been told you can't use the Duke of York, you can't use whatever other random stupid titles he's got. But he is still a prince. He was born a prince because he's the son of the late Queen. Lots of calls for him to not only face police investigation, but also, I mean, literally just disappear. Why are you in this big house? What are you living off? Where is your income from? Are taxpayers paying for any of it? Why have you got a title at all? Do you think that he should be stripped of all his titles? Do you think that, and by the way, this requires a parliamentary act, that even a nanosecond of the country's time in the Commons should be used to do this? Where do you stand?
Well, firstly, I think Parliament has got better things to do than to deal with this man and his titles. The second thing I would say is, to be fair to the King, he has acted, in my view, pretty decisively. This is his own brother, someone he was...
but he hates him. This is long-standing.
But even
there's no love lost.
I mean, look, however much you squabble with your siblings, there is a degree of love and familial affection here, and it would not be pleasant for anyone, not least the King, who's in the midst of cancer treatment, to have to break out of his time out of his diary last week to... Basically, it looks like he had to threaten his brother with an act of Parliament. That's certainly what the Sunday papers are saying. To say, you have to give up all of your titles. You have to publicly humiliate yourself, because he has. In doing this, he's basically made another further admission of guilt.
That is what it looks like, sorry.
In order to save the reputation of the family. That cannot have been easy. And the King, credit to him, did so. Now, plenty of people will say, why did it take until now? I would say this, it wasn't known categorically, provably, until last week that Andrew had lied, that he had lied to his own family, that he'd lied to his own mother, to his brother, about the extent and the times of which he had contact with Jeffrey Epstein. What we saw last week was the fact that Andrew has been going around basically, and I apologise for putting it this highly, as a bit of a con man, trying to persuade everybody around of this nonsense story that...
no one believed
regrettably,
it.
Well,
no one believed it. Here's the thing, and this is the thing about the royal family. This is my issue, is that, okay, all that time that he wrote that letter he wrote that email. We've seen the email to the Queen's Deputy Press Secretary. When he was going off and staying with a convicted child sex trafficker, okay, he solicited young underage girls for prostitution. He was already convicted of that. He went off and said that. He takes his security team with him. You don't think that the Met high-level, close protection team, they don't all discuss things? There's no way in the world that who he met, where he was not known to the upper echelons of the police, and that this was not passed on to the press secretary of the Queen, and that the Queen was or was not informed. There's no way in the world that senior Met police officers and that senior royal, certainly royal officials, didn't know this stuff. Now, I suspect that Prince Charles, when he was Prince Charles, did know a lot of this stuff, and his mum was just left... We've all met people who are like, oh, my son can do no wrong. And she obviously had this complete blind spot for Prince Andrew, clearly her favourite child, and she had this complete blind spot for him, and I'm afraid he was able to get away with stuff which he shouldn't have been able to get away with. I'm sorry, I don't know a single person who believed a single word of anything he said in that Newsnight interview.
I did, but what he said was so stupid and idiotic that was enough to damn him. That was the thing, actually. There was, until this week, a perfectly plausible story that Andrew was, if not nice but dim, something mildly akin to that, maybe a bit worse than that, but not much worse. We now know that he lied to his own mother's face, he's lied to his own brother's face, and as a result, he's been stripped of everything that he's ever had.
I'm sorry, the 12 million quid is the giveaway. The 12 million quid is the giveaway. I'm sorry. It's ridiculous. There's a photograph of him with the woman he says he never met, for goodness sake. Look, I want to ask you, because I'd love to hear from the audience, should Prince Andrew be stripped of all of his royal titles after the latest revelations, not just in the emails, but from the Jeffrey Epstein victim, Virginia Giuffre? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Tell us whether you think he should or he shouldn't, or whether you really could not give two hoots, because I think that's also a perfectly legitimate answer. But 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs standard network rate message. Feel free to get in touch about any of the other big topics we're going to be talking about today, and we'll get to some of those in just a moment. But For me, I don't approve of titles anyway. Okay, there's no one beneath me, and there's definitely no one above me. I play along with, you know, Lord and Lady and Baroness and this and Your Honour. I'm not calling anybody Your Highness, because there's no. I'm sorry. I do not believe. I think we're all created equal.
I don't think the royals had invited you, Julia.
No,
I don't think there was much
I did go to a party at Windsor Castle once, and I managed to avoid getting into a scenario where I would embarrass myself to the hostess. But no, I genuinely don't approve of any of this stuff. I think it's old-fashioned, silly nonsense. But if you want to have the pomp and the pageantry, and you want to have a head of a state, it's not late, that's fine. Okay, but I'm not bowing down to all that nonsense. The idea that this guy, and Prince Andrew, I had a lot of time for Prince Andrew. The fact that he fought for his country, very brave in the Falklands War, and he's thrown it all away. You know, Randy Andy and all of that. I don't even care if you're the heir and you're the spare, and you want to, you know, you've got a load of women throwing themselves at you. That's fine. That is not what I believe has happened. I know that newspaper editors have safes full of stuff on him and on Sarah Ferguson and everything. And I'm sorry, everybody knows there's so much more. These two have been basically, how can I put it? They put money and their pleasure above anything and anyone else. And we're quite happy to create Sarah Ferguson. Oh, you know, hello, I know you're convicted of trafficking girls who are about the same age as my daughter, but could I borrow some money off you? Could you give me some money? They've never met a billionaire they didn't like. Yep. Doesn't matter how dodgy they are. I've just got no time for these people. I really have no time for them. And I completely understand why the King and Prince Charles are just, King and Prince William are just horrified that they are anywhere on the scene. But that's the problem of saying, we're going to have this family that we're going to hold up and put on a pedestal. Well, how's that working for you?
Well, I would say that the royal family has consistently, I'm afraid, pretty consistently had a problem with what to do with the spare.
Yeah.
And it is a...
Hi, Prince Harry.
It is an incredibly... People will laugh at this, you will scoff at this, but it is actually a difficult gig to get born into, being the spare.
It's terrible. But I think being born to be a king is a terrible thing as well.
Well, but say what you like about the kings and queens of this country, they have always had a sense of duty.
Oh,
and
100%, I agree with that.
Mission and purpose has kept them basically sane in a difficult world. Because when you have duty, when you have a job to do, a mission to go about and achieve, most people, and in particular our royal family, have pretty successfully devoted themselves to that. It gives you purpose and happiness in life.
The late Queen, absolutely
purpose and happiness in life. But if you don't have that, if all you have is all of this, but there's nothing you're really working towards, that's when people go.
I completely accept that, but then you can still manage to do that and not be friends with somebody who has trafficked underage girls for prostitution. Call me old-fashioned.
Pretty reasonable bar.
It's not. It's a low bar. It's a low bar. I'm telling you though, the police investigation will kind of disappear because they always do. Let's move on. I want to talk also about where we are with this Tel Aviv football match. I know we've had over the weekend a Tel Aviv football derby between Tel Aviv Maccabi and Tel Aviv Hapoel, basically cancelled. We're told by the Tel Aviv authorities risk to human lives. Violence broke out at the stadium. I'd like to point out it's very, very clear that the violence was, everything was started by flares in the colour of Hapoel, the other team, being launched, and then there was violence and between fans and to the police. However, that's happened, and people say, well, that completely justifies the plan to ban Tel Aviv Maccabi fans from attending a match with Aston Villa in Birmingham early next month. Now, what's interesting about this, we've been told this is about protecting those fans. They can't be safe. This is about protecting the home fans. This is about protecting just people generally in Birmingham. We don't have enough police. We don't have enough this. And then we've got a whole load of MPs and councillors in the Birmingham area, and all the independent MPs who've called for this, independent, i.e. pro-Gaza MPs, who basically were all going, well, it's because of Israel, isn't it, that this is a political ban. Where do you stand on this? Because it does seem to me that this message about this is really, really clear. It's that this is an area which is vast majority Muslim, and this is basically saying this is a no-go area for Jews. Is it that simple, or is there justification for that ban?
Birmingham is now a Muslim area. That's what has been claimed. They've staked a flag in the ground. And we saw over the weekend, a protest in London, somebody was arrested. Why was he arrested? Well, in large part because he was wearing a small Star of David necklace round his neck. And we've got into a situation in now, it's kind of the reverse of the absolute worst eras of the last century, in which Jews were forced to wear Stars of David. Now, if you're wearing a symbol of Judaism, if you're wearing something that is associated with Jewishness, you are, to all intents and purposes,
fair game.
Banned from certain areas, because those areas belong to Britain's Muslim population, and their elected representatives, and I'm afraid it is their elected representatives, have basically made it clear that Jews are not welcome, and shamefully, disgracefully, appallingly, the police, whether that's West Midlands Police or the Metropolitan Police, have said, yeah, you know,
we'll go along with that.
That's
no,
our
they
policy
don't
too.
couch it in those terms. They couch it in the terms of, like, we believe that Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza. That is not true, but the BBC plays along with a lot of that madness, so you can understand why people would think it's true. A lot of otherwise sensible, intelligent, educated people think that's true, and it is simply, factually, simply not true. But they couch it in those terms, that this is a team that represents a country, although it's not a national team, but there have been demands that not only Israel, out of the, they should be out of the Eurovision, out of UEFA, out of the World Cup, and that their team should be out of any, this is the Europa League, they shouldn't be allowed to play in Champions League or whatever it is they've been playing in. And so they couch it in those terms.
Yep.
But does that cover up what they really think, which is that basically we don't like Jews and we don't want Jews coming here?
OK, let's just say it is about the genocide of, inverted commas, genocide of Muslim people. OK, well, there's going to be a number of sporting fixtures this year in which players from China are going to come and play.
Yep.
There is a genocide of Muslims going on, an independent tribunal has found so, in the Xinjiang province of Uyghur Muslims. Are they campaigning for Chinese athletes not to be able to play, or Chinese fans not to be able to come? No. Are they doing the same in Sudan, Nigeria, Myanmar or Burma? No. They've got a problem with one particular country, and oh, surprise, it just happens to be the only Jewish state on the planet.
It keeps coming up as a theme, doesn't it? Just keeps coming up. And that's the basic thing. Well, we're going to see, because the government has made it clear. I was quite impressed, actually, coming out very early, Prime Minister last week, and saying, right, we're going to, what resources do you need? But at the end of the day, the idea that we can't manage to host a football match without you can't keep people safe, that's pretty damning. But again, this is the same reason why we don't, as you say, see the Met Police properly policing the outrageous anti-Semitism that is blatantly on view and can be heard on the streets of London every other week with these pro-Palestine marches, which are just anti-Jewish hate marches now. That's what they are. And anyone who still attends those, I mean, that's we know who and what you are now, But their failure to tackle that, they don't police that the same way they police other things. What do you make of reports that Steve Witkoff, Donald Trump's sort of Middle East envoy, and his son-in-law Jared Kushner, they have flown to Israel amid concerns about this Gaza ceasefire? We've had claims and counterclaims from Hamas and from Israel. 2 IDF soldiers have been killed. IDF have put an explanation, and they have basically returned with rockets. I mean, that's what you're going to do. At the end of the day, there's lots of claims and counterclaims. Oh, and it's reported, the BBC and the ITV and Sky, that this side or that side claim the ceasefire has been broken by them or the deal's been broken by them. But we know that Hamas is in breach of the deal because Hamas has not returned all the bodies of dead Israeli hostages. So they're already in breach of the deal. We knew that like a week ago. Well,
the key thing is this, is that Hamas, yes, is in an existential war with Israel, of course it is, but it's also much more worried about, as an organisation, its own problems, which is maintaining the control of the Gaza Strip. Because the moment that the Hamas faction, that's been very happily enriching itself off the Gazan people for decades now, the moment that they lose control, then, well, they are all going to end up probably killed or shot by other factions, perhaps more pleasant, perhaps less pleasant, within the Gaza Strip. And that's the secret that nobody ever tells you about Hamas. They are a criminal gang that is
mafia.
That is exploiting the people of Gaza, and there are plenty of other people that are determined to do so, which is why the moment Israeli troops left the Gaza Strip, what did they set about doing? This, the BBC, ITV, whomever cannot deny, because they filmed it and put out the videos themselves. They went around executing people from rival factions because they're determined to hold control. So it's no surprise to me they need some skirmishes with the Israelis, because that's what they need to keep the entire Gazan people in line so they can keep defrauding them.
Absolutely, absolutely.